An extinction level threat is poised to dramatically reduce the global population, and most people have absolutely no idea. Michael Snyder reports, "We're literally killing ourselves and everything around us, and most people don't even know that this is happening. But even if we could get everyone to understand the extinction level threat that we're facing, would they change their behavior? The plastic products that we are constantly discarding do not magically disappear. Instead, they break down into smaller and smaller pieces. Today, there are trillions upon trillions of incredibly small plastic particles known as microplastics that have literally saturated our entire environment. You may not realize it, but microplastics now make up approximately 40% of the dust in our homes. Can you imagine? Every time it rains, microplastics come pouring down from the sky. Our soil is absolutely teeming with microplastics, and the air we breathe is filled with microplastics. And microplastics are in virtually everything that we eat and drink. An article that was recently published by Yale University discusses how pervasive microplastics have now become. Microplastics have been discovered nearly everywhere from the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea to the clouds above Mount Fuji, as well as in the food we eat, water we drink, and air we breathe. In people, microplastics have been found in lungs, placentas, testicles, and bone marrow, and even, of course, semen, among other organs, as well as the blood, urine, semen, breast milk. Scientists are still investigating the potential impact of microplastics, which have been shown to damage human cells. No matter how hard you may try, it's impossible to escape microplastic pollution. It's literally everywhere. Unfortunately, scientists have discovered that microplastics tend to accumulate inside our bodies. In fact, one study that was recently conducted in New Mexico found that microplastics are actually accumulating inside our brains. A study posted in May looked at the increasing levels of micro and nanoplastics, MNPs, in the environment and how they might affect our health. Researchers examined these shard-like particles using autopsy samples collected in Albuquerque, New Mexico from 2016 to 24. The brain tissue samples came from the frontal cortex, which is responsible for abstract thinking, creativity, and motor tasks. If you feel like you can't think as clearly as you should, this may be one reason for that. Sadly, this may also help to explain why our entire society is not thinking too clearly these days. According to CNN, the scientists conducting the study found that brain samples from 2024 had concentrations of microplastics that were 50% higher than brain samples from 2016. Human brain samples collected at autopsy in early 2024 contained more tiny shards of plastic than samples collected 8 years prior, according to a preprint posted online in May. A preprint is a study which has not yet been peer-reviewed and published in a journal. The concentrations we saw in the brain tissue of normal individuals who had an average age of around 45 or 50 years old were 4,800 micrograms per gram, or 0.5% by weight, said lead study author Matthew Campen, a Regents Professor of Pharmaceutical Sciences at University of New Mexico in Albuquerque. Compared to autopsy brain samples from 2016, that's about 50% higher, Campen said. That would mean that our brains today are 99.5% brain and the rest is plastic. Okay, let's allow this to sink in for a moment. Right now our brains are 0.5% plastic. That's bad, but consider what will happen if the amount of plastic in our brains continues to rise at a rate of 50% every 8 years. If that actually happens, 28% of our brains will be plastic 80 years from now, and everyone will be dead. I shouldn't laugh about that. Now, I did the math on this more than once just to make sure that I was correct, Michael says. It's been reported that the most common type of plastic that the researchers found in human brain tissue was polyethylene. The most common type of plastic found was polyethylene, with greater amounts in the brain compared to the other tissue samples. Polyethylene is widely produced and used in things like packaging, plastic bags, storage containers, and toys, according to the book Microfluids for Cellular Applications. Plastic products that we throw away every day contain very dangerous toxins. Constant exposure to such toxins can have very serious consequences. And according to a study posted on the official website of NIH, there exists a definite correlation between exposure to micro and nanoplastic particles and the onset of severe cancers. Micro and nanoplastics have been already reported to be potentially carcinogenic, mutagenic substances that might cause DNA damage, leading to carcinogenesis. Thus, the effects of micro and nanoplastic exposure on human health are currently being investigated extensively to establish clear relationships between those substances and health consequences. So far, it's been observed that there exists a definite correlation between exposure to micro and nanoplastic particles and the onset of several cancers. Therefore, we have conducted research using PubMed, Web of Science, and Scopus databases, searching for all the research papers devoted to cancers that could be potentially related to the subject of exposure to nano and microplastics. Ultimately, in this paper, we have discussed several cancers, including hepatocellular carcinoma, pancreatic cancer, pancreatic ductal adenocarcinoma, biliary tract cancer, and some endocrine-related cancers. You've probably noticed that a lot more people seem to be getting cancer these days. We're facing an unprecedented explosion of cancer in our society, and it gets worse with each passing year. There are lots of reasons why this is happening, and exposure to microplastics is one of them. Another study that was conducted on mice determined that exposure to microplastics can lead to signs of cognitive decline similar to dementia. When Jamie Ross, PhD, neuroscientist and assistant professor, University of Rhode Island College of Pharmacy, decided to study how contaminating the drinking water of mice with tiny fragments of plastic might affect their cognitive function, she did not expect the experiment to yield much. But in just 3 weeks, Ross and her team found microplastics had made their way into the mice's brains, passing the robust defenses of the blood-brain barrier. The researchers performed a variety of tests and found that the microplastic exposed mice started exhibiting signs of cognitive decline similar to dementia. The more plastic that accumulates in our brains, the more difficult it will be for us to think straight. On top of everything else, another study found microplastics in every single one of human and dog testicles that researchers examined. A new study found a pervasive presence of microplastics in human and dog testicles. The research published last week in the Toxicological Sciences Journal found that out of all 47 canine and 23 human testes that were examined, all had a presence of microplastics. The findings suggest that there are potential consequences for male fertility. This could help to explain why fertility rates have been absolutely plummeting all over the globe. What we're facing is truly a worldwide emergency. As I document in my book End Times, the amount of plastic that we produce globally just continues to go up every year, and so this crisis is growing at an exponential rate. But even if we stopped all plastic production immediately, all of the plastic that we have already discarded will continue to break down for decades to come, and so the total number of microplastics in our environment will continue to go up no matter what we do. It's time for humanity to admit that we have failed and to collectively cry out for help before it's too late. But we aren't going to do that, are we? This is by Michael Snyder on the Economic Collapse blog. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. This is by Michael Snyder. About the author, Michael Snyder's extremely controversial new book entitled Chaos is available in paperback and for Kindle on Amazon. He's also written 7 other books that are available on Amazon, including End Times, 7-Year Apocalypse, Lost Prophecies of the Future of America, The Beginning of the End, and Living a Life That Really Matters. When you purchase any of Michael's books, you help to support the work he's doing. You can also get his articles by email as soon as he publishes them by subscribing to his Substack newsletter. Michael has published thousands of articles on the Economic Collapse blog, End of the American Dream, and the Most Important News, and he always freely and happily allows others to republish those articles on their own websites. These are such troubled times and people need hope. John 3:16 tells us about the hope that God has given us through Jesus Christ. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. If you have not already done so, we strongly urge you to invite Jesus Christ to be your Lord and Savior today. Finally, support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.